Hi guys, Asmo here and welcome to the build guide for my League starter for the 3.17 Siege of the Atlas expansion, and this is going to be a guide for Poisonous Concoction Pathfinder, which I think is going to be one of the best League starters for the upcoming League. I'm gonna go over the general build overview, I'm gonna go over the skills, passives, gear, and low budget as well as higher budget POE. And in the next video separately I'm gonna show you how to level this character from 0 on a League start. But let's go over the build, why I think it's going to be so good as a League starter. So in the next League, it's going to be an Atlas expansion that's coming to us, which is going to have some focus on bossing as well as mapping. You're going to have to be able to do both. Builds that are like excellent bossers but have slow clear speed are going to suffer because you want to run a lot of maps, you want to progress through a lot of maps, and 90% of the time you're going to be mapping. So you definitely want to play something really fast, and this build definitely has fast mapping. With Plague Bearer playing Pathfinder, you can run through maps extremely quickly as well as level extremely quickly. So this is definitely a big plus, a fast mapper. Second thing that adds to the speed of progressing through the Atlas is the ability to do all map modes, whether it's no region, whether it's reflect. No matter what the mods on the map are, you can do it. So that's why this build is something that I would recommend. I don't like playing builds on a League start that cannot do map mods and are very limited in terms of the map mods that they can do, because you're very limited in the reroll currency. You have limited amount of scours and alchemies at the very start, and you definitely need to make sure that you can run as many maps as possible. Let's say you drop like a corrupted rare map with random mobs or unidentified map. It's really nice to be able to run that unidentified map without worrying about the mods, because then you get extra quantity, extra maps, and you progress your Atlas faster. So being able to do all maps, being able to do the maps very quickly is very important, and this build definitely delivers on that front. The second thing that I think is going to be very important in the expansion is the ability to kill bosses. Your build doesn't have to be the best boss killer. You don't need to be able to like kill the most giga juiced boss with absolutely nothing on a 4-link or whatever. You just need to be able to do them. You just need to be able to do them so that you don't have to waste time looking for carries. You don't have to waste currency looking for carries. You can just kill your own bosses at your own pace as you progress to them, without having to resort to like having a second character or buying carries or anything like that. You don't have to be the best bossers, but you need to be able to do them. And for that, you need to have decent level of sustain. You need to have decent amount of damage, like 1 to 2 million DPS. Like 2 million DPS, usually you're going to be able to do everything in the game. And then you need to be decently tanky, especially against bosses, which is a little bit different than in maps. In maps, usually you want to be tanky against attacks, but against bosses, it shifts a little bit more towards spells. That's why spell suppression cap is very important for bossing and extremely helpful. This character does all of that. Very nice for bossing, very comfy for bossing, because you have the flasks. You can move extremely fast around the arena, with the Quicksilver flask being self-sustained and pretty much being able to pop it whenever you need to dodge something, being able to pop the defensive flasks as well as keeping up the mana flask all the time, so you never run out of mana, you never run into mana issues as long as you have the decent enduring mana flask. So that's why bossing is very comfortable on this character, and I definitely recommend that. In the background, you're seeing examples of what this build can do on like absolutely dirt cheap budget. The items that I'm wearing, I'm gonna show you the exact character that you see in this footage. It's just bare bones, like life and res gear pretty much. And this is you're seeing there like a rare Elder Guardian there, which is the most annoying Elder Guardian, the Eradicator. He does a lot of damage, is extremely annoying, and I'm face tanking a lot of his abilities. You can see that very clearly, and I'm killing him at a decent pace considering I have like absolutely no gear on that character. And I'm at a level and at the level of gear that I have no business running that. It's basically as if you were rushing to that. And then also you're gonna see a Chimera, which is annoying Guardian that people have struggled with, because if you don't have enough recovery and mitigation, he's just gonna kill you, because he has this invulnerability phase where he's just hitting you and you have to run through the clouds. If your character is not fast enough, not tanky enough, you're gonna die to that repeatedly, and it's extremely annoying. This character just trivializes this, and I can just face tank that boss, sit in his damage, and basically not care about that and just pump him, do poison damage, stack the poisons, and just kill him. It makes it extremely easy. So that's what you're seeing in the background. In terms of the skills that we're using on the character. Let's go over that first. So the main setup that we're using is going to be Poisonous Concoction, of course. Then we're using Void Manipulation, Greater Multiple Projectiles, Greater Volley. So those two, the combination of Greater Multiple Projectiles with Greater Volley allows you to shoot 10 projectiles. And if you have at least 21 radius on your Poisonous Concoction, which you can see in the POB, I'll show you in a moment. If you go to POB, if you go to Calculations and select Poisonous Concoction, you're gonna see here radius, you need this to be 21. It's extremely easy to accomplish when you're playing a Pathfinder, because your Ascendancy gives you the extra, where do we have this, 30% increased area of effect for Chaos skills. So that allows you to very, very easily meet that threshold, and that will allow you to overlap 9 projectiles. So when you're calculating the damage for this skill, you're calculating 9 hits, because people have tested this, and with 21 radius, you're consistently hitting 9 hits. So that's what we're going with. And then we also have Deadly Ailments as well as Unbound Ailments. You can see here the gems are like level 20, some of them are level 19. So no level 21 gem even. This is like level 92, which is at the point where you should have level 20 gems, around that level, unless you're dying a lot. I was not dying much, so I didn't have that trouble, but sometimes you're gonna have like lower level when the gems hit that level. You should have like level 92 or something like that when your gems hit level 20. Then we're running Plague Bearer, which is another big source of damage. We're running it with increased AoE. Later on, if this is not the budget version, like on a higher budget, you're gonna run also Enhance and Empower with this to raise the levels of the gem, and you're gonna run level 21 Plague Bearer. It's gonna do a lot more damage, and it's gonna allow you to clear just by popping the Plague Bearer. And even tanky monsters in maps where monsters have a lot more life and chaos res are going to be dying to this. It's extremely powerful. Plague Bearer is such a powerful spell and very comfy, and I like playing poison builds because of it. That's like the main reason why these builds are so quick at clearing. Then we also have here Defiance Banner, as well as our other auras, which are, we got Herald of Agony, which gives us the extra poison damage as well as chance to poison. We've got the Grace, which gives us evasion, a lot of evasion percentage and flat, which we convert to armor, which I'll talk about in a moment. And then we also have the Skitterbots. We don't have Enlighten here because, again, this is the budget version. This build has like no currency invested into it. With the higher budget, you're gonna run Enlighten, and instead of Skitterbots, you're gonna run Malevolence, which is going to do more damage. Or you could also run the Owl's Uprising Amulet, which is gonna have Malevolence that requires no reservation, and you can just run free Malevolence. We also have Blood Rage, which gives us frenzy charges and attack speed for clearing, as well as for the map bosses, because as you're clearing and running quickly to a map boss, this is gonna give you a lot more damage for killing the map boss as well. Rest of the gems, what else do we have? Despair here. This doesn't even have, like, Despair on hit is something you can get on a ring. You can get Flask that will give you Despair aura. You can get Blasphemy, so you can get also Amulet that gives you a free Despair reservation when it's combined with Blasphemy. You can do so many things to have like free automated Despair. You can have, for example, Corrupted Gloves. Here we don't have any of that, so you're seeing gameplay with just self-cast Despair. It's not that difficult. It's just small quality of life and like one attack less that you're doing because you have to cast that Despair first. Then we're running Shield Charge, Flame Dash, and Faster Attacks. That's our mobility. Shield Charge, especially once you equip it in the campaign, in the second part of the campaign, Shield Charge allows you to move so quickly. You're just taking like 15-20 seconds to just go through a zone while leveling. If you're not under leveled and don't need to kill too much, it's extremely comfy to play with and allows you to move extremely fast. And just for traversing some bigger gaps, we have the Flame Dash here. Then we also have Cast when damage taken Molten Shell with a Val Molten Shell. I'm keeping it at the level where it takes around 1k damage to trigger, which makes it pretty safe. And when it triggers, it gives us a big shield that gives us Molten Shell or Val Molten Shell. It can give you like up to 10k shield because you're gonna have the flasks up almost all the time. We have a lot of armor, and this extra 10k just absorbs so much life. You can face tank so many things. It's extremely, extremely powerful. We're running this also with increased duration for longer uptime of this Molten Shell or Val Molten Shell. And then we also run Withering Step linked to the increased duration. This is actually pretty important because this allows this this debuff to last longer than the cooldown, which means you can stack it multiple times. And in the config of the POB, you're going to see that I have in the config, let me quickly switch to this, there we go. In the config of the POB, you're going to see that I'm running withered stacks only 12 here in this config, just to showcase the actual real scenario that you're gonna have in game, right? So that's all when it comes to the gems. Let's look at the passive skill tree. For the passive skill tree, this is very simple passive skill tree that you're just gonna level with, and you don't need any cluster jewels to get started. Of course, cluster jewels are going to give you more damage, and they're gonna give you a lot of quality of life that you can get out of them, but you can start without them. The important things, when you're level, you're gonna go through these projectile nodes, then you're gonna go through a primal spirit, then you're gonna go through quick step, and then progress rest as it is. But later on, you're gonna respec these nodes because they're a little bit less efficient, and you're just gonna get this reservation here. You're just gonna get some chaos damage and chaos resistance because that's actually very helpful as well. Again, some move speed, life, damage over time, a bunch of life and evasion. We're getting spell suppression. These two nodes together give us 55% reduction to the damage that we're taking from spells. So every spell that hits me deals only 45% of the original damage that it would have dealt. So with capped spell suppression, this is actually a very powerful mechanic of reducing the damage you're taking. We get some extra accuracy, life, poison damage. This is a node that gives us crit immunity. This is something that is very optional. You don't need that because these are not very efficient nodes in terms of the damage. This is 10 damage over time multiplier for poison. This is very powerful. This is like 5% poison duration. Not that strong, but still okay. And then the 10% chance to poison, which probably you don't need because you'll have that overcapped. But still, it's a very nice node to get because it will simply reduce the amount of times that you're dying, because like a boss will never crit you if you have it poisoned, and you're gonna have it poisoned basically from the first time that you hit it. Very, very cool node, only available on the claw passives, but it doesn't matter that we are not equipping claws, even with no weapon or anything. Enemies poisoned by you don't deal critical strikes, and that's it. Then we've got also phasing here, also optional, could be also solved with a flask, could be also done with some other way, but this is just a like simple leveling tree that gives you some phasing, onslaught and onslaught effect, just so that you can go faster. And then the important part here is the iron reflexes, which is why we are pathing to this side. Iron reflexes convert all of the evasion that we have for armor, and one of the main reasons to do that is to take the damage more consistently. So we're not gonna get like having a big reduction of the damage we're taking and then suddenly getting one shot, right? So we're avoiding that. We're also making it so that our flask, since we're rolling the flasks, since we have some like flasks nodes and playing Pathfinder, we're gonna have it up all the time, and we're gonna be able to use it to heal ourselves anytime. Even on bosses, when you're spamming damage, you're still gonna be able to sustain the flask. You're gonna be able to use it to heal yourself. It's gonna give you massive recovery, and taking less damage, having good mitigation, which is coming from spell suppression and armor, and also resistances, is gonna give you the opportunity to heal yourself up. You're gonna be taking damage at a slower pace, so you're gonna be able to react to that. And we're getting this a lot of armor from Grace. We're getting it from Flasks. So for Flask, we're running Jade Flask. You can also run Granite Flask, and then we're also running Basalt Flask, which gives us 20% more armor multiplier, which is very, very powerful. In terms of the other defenses, other than spell suppression and that, we have very powerful flasks. We also have a reduced curse effect, which I recommend having here. We have a bleed removal and ignite removal, because bleed and ignite are like the scariest things for this build, because for hits we're protected decently well. If you look at the POB and the calculations, we are fairly tanky, but we are least tanky against dots. So especially like physical dots, that's what we are least tanky against. So you definitely want to have a removal for that. And you can also run a jewel with corrupted blood immunity. This is like an extremely budget jewel with just like increase damage over time. Like even if you don't have any stats and you just invest into the Corrupted Blood, it's gonna be totally fine. The other two jewels, I just have like chaos.multi, some res, and here we have strength, chaos.multi, chaos damage, like very, very dirt cheap 1C jewels. So nothing too powerful here. In terms of the gear, let's go over the gear now. This is the thing that is actually important for me to stress out. This is just dirt cheap, bare minimum gear that has almost no damage scaling on it besides like a powerful craft mod that I'm gonna talk about in a second. This is super cheap. It's mostly life, res, spell suppression, some accuracy, very basic items. There's zero influenced items. There is nothing expensive here. There is zero uniques, nothing that you need, everything that you can just pick up from the ground or from trade for 1 to 5 chaos. So first of all, we've got the helmet. On the helmet, what you want is life res, armor evasion. If you can get spell suppression, that's also cool. You can get spell suppression on any of the pieces. And then the important part is the bench craft. This is something that cannot be skipped. Make sure to get it from someone else or unveil helmets as soon as possible, because the increased duration of ailments you inflict while focused is a massive damage boost. This is like 50% more damage multiplier for you in effect. Like if you're dealing, let's say 2 million damage, popping focus is gonna make you deal 3 million damage, right? So focus is extremely powerful with this duration of ailments. It makes your poisons last longer, which means you are able to stack more of them. Like every individual hit is gonna deal more damage. This is extremely powerful, and this requires an empty suffix on your item. So you can have like a couple resistances and life, and then you put that on the helmet, and there you go. I purposefully did not use a helmet with an enchant even. Like this is super budget. Every single piece here is super budget. Like no enchant, no uniques, fucking corrupted 6 thing. This is really dirt cheap, like nothing on the gear. On the focus, you can run on the left click while clearing, but I don't recommend doing that while bossing. While bossing, I would do something like I would probably swap this here just so I can see it, have it on some other button, and then I would put focus maybe on my right click or something, just so that I can pop it when I'm actually going to be dealing damage to the boss. In the windows where you can just like stand, pop your flasks down, spam all the flasks and just spam the damage. That's where you want to pop the focus, because you're gonna boost your damage. But while clearing, you can totally do that and it doesn't hurt you. It's actually helpful because you can press other buttons as well. So this helmet, super easy. For the chest, corrupted 6 link with a bunch of life and one other stat. It can be some good res, it can be spell suppression, can be some evasion, can be whatever you can find, like just a corrupted 6 link. Don't worry about the colors. If you have colors that are not fitting your skills, just make sure you get evasion base, and then it's gonna be super easy. You'll just go to your crafting bench. Let me go to the crafting bench and show you quickly. Let's go here to not the stash. Where's the crafting bench in this fucking hideout? Okay, let's go to the crafting bench and show you what are we looking at. Okay, so if you look at green, okay, at least 1 green socket, that's gonna cost you 4 chromatic orbs and 4 Val orbs if the item is corrupted. Let me show you here. Sockets need to be empty. Let's just empty the sockets just so I can show you. 4 Val orbs. It's gonna be very easy to hit. If I do this, it's gonna be all green. There we go, we hit it again. So I needed 8 of those just to hit this again. It's very easy to do if this is a base that only requires dexterity, right? So that's what I recommend for the chest. For the what's it called? The shield, you just want some evasion, spell suppression, life, some resistances if you can. That's great. For the boots, movement speed, again, some life and evasion, some resistances, some spell suppression. Again, I have no spell suppression on this, but I have some on the other items. Like, you don't have to have it on every single item, just get it on whatever you can. For the gloves, I just found these. You can get stuff like that for a couple C. It doesn't need to be apothecary gloves. You want some life resistances, if you can get accuracy on any of these items, that's also great. You can get accuracy, I think, on a helmet as well. You can get it on jewelry. You can get it on a belt, maybe on the gloves. So that's really cool. And then prefix, you want to leave empty, which is gonna be used for the +1 to level of socketed AOE gems. From the benchcraft, this is gonna also give you extra AOE that will help you reach the 21 radius for your poisonous concoction. And the reason for that is so that we can have higher level of Plague Bearer, because that's the main thing that the Plague Bearer scales with, is the gem levels. And speaking of gem levels, I don't even have that on the amulet. This is something that's going to be extremely easy to get. You're going to be able to get +2 to chaos skills amulets very, very easily on items that are not influenced even, I think, because they're changing that. So this is going to be super easy to get like a +2 amulet, which is going to just boost your damage dramatically. You're going to also be able to get like damage over time multiplier and so on, but I skipped all of that. I just get like a budget amulet that has some life, res, and some accuracy. That's it. Some life, res, and some accuracy. Super easy. It has like 1 res on it. And you can craft whatever you want. You can craft like a minus cost to skills. You can craft added chaos damage to attacks. You can craft whatever you want. Resistances, stats, because you might need some extra strength and int. And stuff like that. In terms of the anointment, very good cheap anointment early that I recommend is this Aggressive Bastion. This gives you extra 5% chance to block, because we also have block, of course, because we're using shield. This gives you 30% increased damage with ailments, and as well as 10% chance to gain endurance charge on kill while holding a shield. This means that while mapping, you're gonna have endurance charges. Super easy way to get endurance charges while mapping. Very helpful. It's gonna make you tankier. It's gonna make it smoother. When you arrive at the boss of the map, you're still gonna have endurance charges and you're gonna be tankier against that, which is very, very nice. What else do we have in terms of the gear? And then we have the rings. Rings, this one I crafted with a chaos essence. Just get some essences and just dump essences on this. You can just have stats, for example. You can go like intelligence or strength essences on it. If you hit like 1 res or life, you just craft the other thing on it and that's it. If you hit some accuracy, that's great. So it's like increased damage, accuracy, and 1 res. So I hit 2 things on this with the essence and I'm happy, right? I just craft life on it, and I'm happy. Just very, very cheap. You can get also the Iolite rings with increased chaos damage. You could go also for resistance rings, whatever you can find. And then in terms of the belt, I just dump strength essence on it, hit 1 res, and I'm happy with it as well. And that's it. You can get life, resistances, strength. You can have int, you can have accuracy, you can have armor, so many different things. This one has a good example of a jewel that has a lot of things that you want to look for. So for example, life and resistances, that's always great. Accuracy can be found on the Searching Eye jewels. The Searching Eye jewel is what you want to get. And also you can find increased damage over time while holding a shield, or even better modes that I'm going to show you in the higher budget POB. But this is just something super simple that you can get early on. And that's basically the gear. The gear will cost you like nothing. It's corrupted 6-link that you can even find yourself with some life or buy it for a few C. And that's it. That's super, super cheap and easy setup. And if you look at the POB, this setup against bosses, if you look, the config is very conservative. I'm not picking frenzy charges. I'm not picking onslaught, and you know, I'm not enabling like this is the damage that you can have while clearing, right? While clearing, you get like 6 million DPS. But to be realistic, if you're fighting a boss, you will not have the frenzy charges if it's like a Cyrus or whatever, and you will not have onslaught in this setup, and you're gonna have like 2.4 million damage, right? In terms of the tankiness, you're gonna be decently tanky as well. And that's it. Let me show you now higher budget POB, just so you can see what else is achievable when you actually invest into the character. So now we see drastically different numbers. We see 15 million damage. We see insane tankiness, including chaos. And that is mostly due to the 90% chaos resistance. And let me go over the build. So if you want to invest more into this character, the POB is going to be included, this one as well as the budget one. So you're gonna be able to start with the budget and then item by item build up to this version if you want to invest into that. And this is not even like the highest investment version that you can get. This is just like very solid basic items and basic clear upgrades to go for. First thing is the cluster jewels. For cluster jewels, we want to go for Touch of Cruelty, Wicked Pal, and then just Wasting Affliction, Circling Oblivion. Those are very, very simple damage jewels. There are other options that you can get as well. And then we want to get 2 Born of Chaos for the maximum chaos res, as well as Divine Flesh that comes from Glorious Vanity in the name of Zibakwa. That gives you the maximum chaos res as well. Then we're getting max chaos res from this node, Anointing 1 with Evil, and then we're getting max chaos res from Shield. You can get up to +3 to maximum chaos res. All of that will give you 90% chaos res, and while using Zibakwa, that means 50% of the elemental damage is taken as chaos damage. So halfway point between 75 and 90, which is what, like 87.5 or something? No, it's like 80 something and a half, 84.5, I don't know, 80 something elemental resistances. You end up with massive elemental damage mitigation, still crit immune, still capped spell suppression, 60k armor, so actually huge amount of armor because we're getting like decent evasion and armor rolls on our items now. So this is very, very tanky. This build also uses Watcher's Eye that can use, for example, a chance to evade if you're affected by Grace. This will give you some extra tankiness. You can have some Malevolence mods like Damage Over Time Multiplier. This Damaging Ailments deal damage 15% faster actually doesn't work for some reason for the POE. It doesn't change the actual DPS. But it's still put there because that's something that you can go for. And then the passive skill tree is actually very similar, except that we have better stuff, right? At a higher level here, because this is like level 98 skill tree. The budget one is level 92, which is much easier to hit. We're using jewels that have strength int because we still need that. Chaos.multi, increased chaos damage, life. You can also get some AoE on that. What else do we have here? Here we've got like Corrupted Blood, Chaos.multi, max life, actually very simple stuff. Very, very simple stuff. You can get some extra resistances also on the cluster jewels or extra attributes on the cluster jewels. So always look for jewels that have these extra rolls. That is pretty important. And let's go into the items. So the upgrades that you want to get. For the shield, simple shield, spell suppression, evasion life, resistances, and max chaos res. So that comes from a hunter influence. Max chaos res is what we're aiming at, and then have very decent stats. These are not like max rolls, but they are very, very good rolls on everything. Then we've got a helmet. On helmet you can get again armor, evasion, some life, resistances, and you can get other than the crafted mod, you can also get nearby enemies have -9 to chaos resistance. You can get this mod elevated or whatever, but I just went for basic version just so you know what are like the upgrades that make sense that you want to go for. Then we've got a chest. On the chest, basically we have better rolls of everything that we would normally want to get, and then we can also get chance to avoid elemental ailments, and we can also get chance to gain frenzy charge on hit. You can actually become ailment immune by getting chance to avoid elemental ailments on a shield, on a chest, and on boots, which is not that hard to get with high investment. On gloves you can get dot multi, accuracy, life, again the +1 to socketed gems, and some resistances. This is again just simple, good rolls. Boots, same thing. You just got spell suppression, life resistances, movement speed. You can get, for example, a regen enchant on this. For the amulet, you can go for +1 with the dot multi, or you can even go for +2, or even +2 with dot multi, but then you're gonna be skipping the life. You can get a life, resistances, intelligence, or strength, because you're gonna need that, and you allocate 1 with evil if you wanna easily hit the 90% chaos res, which is right here, this node, very, very cheap. If you want to maximize the damage, you'd probably allocate corruption to increase the effect of withered. That's gonna maximize the DPS. Next item we've got is the rings. So for the rings, we're actually going for Circle of Nostalgia. You can go for chaos resistance, increased chaos damage while affected by Herald of Agony, as well as increased buff effect of Herald of Agony. And then they are gonna have some implicits. So the implicits are actually a big deal. You can get crazy implicits like +1 frenzy charge. You can get implicits, maybe you can get like curse on hit, you can get some crazy stuff on these implicits, you can get extra resistances, stats, damage. So whatever is the best ring that you can find. I just simply put ones here without any extra implicits because you cannot reliably get those. They're very random, and if I type something here, you might not even be able to find that in the next league because they're very, very random. So I just put stuff that has good rolls in here. Then we've got the belt. For the belt, again, you want to have strength of or int on that, increased chaos damage you can get on that, life and increased life, and some resistances. And very nice thing that you can get on a belt that is going to be very, very strong is going to be enemies withered by you have -6 to all resistances. This comes from the special lab that allows you to enchant belts, and this is something very nice to go for. Once you have a really, really good belt, run that lab for a while with like extra prophecies and stuff like that. Actually, prophecies are being removed. That's interesting. So I guess you're gonna have to run that lab a little bit more, but this enchant is very, very powerful and adds a lot of damage because you are withering the enemies yourself with withering step, as well as some extra alternate quality gems, and this is gonna give you extra damage. And for the abyss jewels, you wanna have accuracy, life, damage over time while holding a shield, and enemies withered by you have -2 to all resistances. This is actually an insane mod that you can get on an abyss jewel. For the flasks, actually flasks are something that I haven't mentioned that I should have talked about more. So for the flasks, very, very important. On this budget version, what you want to do is you get a divine flask, like divine life flasks. You don't get the eternal one because the eternal actually does not recover more life. It's just like quicker duration, but divine flask recovers the most life. So you want to get divine flask, and you want to quality it to 20%, and then you want to roll the increased amount recovered, reduced recovery rate. This is what you want to roll. You can very early on item level 60, which is from Blood Aqueducts. So as soon as you can find these, you can get tier 2 of that roll, which is up to 64 increased amount recovered. And then you want to put like immunity to bleeding / corrupted blood on it as a suffix. Later on, you can get tier 1, which comes from a higher item level flasks, which goes to up to 70% increased amount recovered. So that's what you want on a life flask, and this actually buffs the damage that you're doing with poison concoction. So while leveling and while gearing up, the life flask is very important, and you should always have the best life flask that you can have. For the other flasks, you can have basalt flask, you can have jade flask, quicksilver. You can use either mana or hybrid flask if you can sustain that. The benefit of using hybrid flask as your mana flask is the fact that it benefits from nodes such as this, for example. Life flasks gain 1 charge every 3 seconds. This means that even your mana flask in effect will be gaining a charge from this modifier. So that's something that you can abuse as well. And then there are the cluster jewels, which I already talked about. The build is super powerful, super comfy, very nice to level, smooth progression. I definitely recommend it. This is going to be definitely my league starter. It's good for clearing. It's very, very fast, simple. You can do any bosses, any content with it. So I definitely is top pick in my opinion. I'm gonna make also another video where I will give you some other recommendations for the league starter, but I think the next video is going to be the leveling for this build. I'll basically try to show a full run, or actually like most of the run, so that you can see how I level this character. I think I leveled this after doing like 2 or 3 rounds to practice. I leveled in like 4 hours and 15 minutes or something like that to do all the labs, all the skill points, Act 10, kill Kitava, right? Like 4 hours, 15 minutes or something like that. I'm not the fastest player. It's just a really fast build. And so I'm going to show you how to do that in the next video. Let me know, guys, what you think in the comments below. If you have any questions, I'll answer them there as well. Thank you for watching, and see you next time.